Hey guys, what's up? It's Beau Horror Reviews, and I'm here with another favorite first-time watches video. We finally got another one in the can. Well, not yet, because I filmed these segments in order, so let's just get right into it. You guys know what's up. If you've seen these videos before, I talk about movies that I've watched in the last month that have perplexed and interested and entertained and wowed me. So, yeah, let's just get right into it. So, starting off, the first movie I want to talk about is Sasquatch, The Legend of Bigfoot from 1976. This is a 70s Bigfoot docudrama horror film, similar to like Boggy Creek, for example, except not as good or as memorable as Boggy Creek. Sasquatch, The Legend of Bigfoot is a pretty chill little movie, in my opinion. Don't get me wrong, it's not the most thrilling movie ever. It's like 60% chill nature cinematography set to really relaxing music. 25% of it is like dry, pseudo-western, kind of on-the-trail docudrama stuff. And then about 15% of it is the spooky Bigfoot stuff, which is what you're here for. But despite the film, maybe being a little on the dry side, I really enjoyed it as just a nice thing to watch on a rainy Sunday afternoon, which is exactly when I watched it. I won't lie, I dozed off once or twice, and I had to rewind it. But that aside, I still actually really like this movie, and I would definitely recommend you check it out. It's on Tubi currently, if you want to give it a watch. It's like Boggy Creek, is what I'm gonna say. So, if you watch my collection update videos, you'll know that I recently got into my possession a copy of the Fat Boys' first album, the self-titled album, Fat Boys. And I'd consider myself a fan of the group. They were unironically a really great rap trio. And they starred in two movies, as far as I can tell. One of them was Crush Groove, which is a film essentially about the formation of Def Jam Records, and Disorderlies, which is the movie I'm going to talk about now. Disorderlies is a film where the Fat Boys play these orderlies who are hired by this evil rich guy because he wants to hire the most incompetent people possible in order to kill his uncle, so he can get the inheritance. That's the setup. And he figures, yeah, I'm going to hire the Fat Boys because they're incompetent, and that's the film. He hires the Fat Boys because he thinks that they're so incompetent that his uncle will die under their care. Disorderlies is unironically a pretty genuinely hilarious movie. I wasn't ready for to laugh as much as I did at the film, and I'm very happy that I did laugh as much as I did at the film, because it's genuinely one of the funniest movies I've seen in months. It's not hard to get a laugh out of me usually, but to get consistent laughs out of me is hard, and this film managed to do that. If you like comedies, Disorderlies is a great one. This one's like a 4 out of 5. I really hope that this gets like a nice Blu-ray release sometime soon. Up next, we have Pagan Island from 1961. This is what's known as a Tikisploitation film. I didn't know that this was a genre of exploitation until I discovered this film. It's essentially about a guy who is shipwrecked and left on an island that is inhabited entirely by women who worship this tiki god statue. It's basically just a really early sexploitation joint. A lot of side boob. If anything, this is the side boob hour from Family Guy, if anything, because these women are literally covering their breasts with nothing but the leis that they're wearing. Despite this being kind of a dry and sort of boring early sexploitation film, it leans a little bit into horror with like unintentional allusions to movies like The Wicker Man and Brides of Blood, which both of those came after. Um, Pagan Island is mainly worth watching just so you can say you've seen a Tikisploitation film. And at an hour runtime, it's kind of hard to consider it an awful time killer. Um, it's on Tubi currently if you want to check it out, and this one is a 2.5 out of 5. Up next is Animal House from 1978. I've always been interested in seeing Animal House mainly because it's such an iconic and well-known movie, and it's also an early John Landis film. Not that John Landis is a director you should praise, but I like some of his movies, and I'm not afraid to say that. That being said, though, Animal House is, like a pretty early entry in the sex comedy canon. It's not as enjoyably dated as Porky's is, although this film is definitely kind of dated, and there are things about it that, in retrospect, are a tad bit misogynistic, I'll say. But that didn't minimize my enjoyment of the film at all. I personally had a pretty good time watching it, and I don't think my time was wasted. Animal House is essentially a comedy, a college frat comedy, about this fraternity in the 60s that is going to be thrown off campus if they mess up one more time, and they continue to do their wild parties and antics despite that. There's some pretty interesting kind of things going on in the movie. For example, they talk about the guys in this fraternity. They talk about how their rival fraternity, who is their neighbor, how they're all gay, and then you see the fraternity initiation for this fraternity, and it's just like, oh, they just have a beer and say a chant, and then you see the initiation ritual for the rival fraternity, and these guys are all just like ripped young men in whitey tighties getting spanked with paddles by men in cloaks, and you're like, wow, this is a little homoerotic, huh? There's a great scene in the film with Donald Sutherland where he plays one of the professors, and he smokes pot with some of his students, and honestly, if I had the chance to smoke pot with Donald Sutherland, I would have totally fucking done it. I silently chuckled pretty much once every few minutes. I was never really bored with the film, and I found that it had grown on me quite a bit by the end of it. It's not a great movie by any means, but I can see why some class it as an essential comedy. Animal House is a 3 out of 5. Up next is Cannibal Girls from 1973. Cannibal Girls is directed by Ivan Reitman, who directed Ghostbusters, and it stars Eugene fucking Levy, of all people. It's essentially about a young couple who spend the night at a restaurant. It kind of does the old dark house cliche of we can't leave, there's a storm thing. And it's haunted by the ghosts of 3 women who hunger for human flesh. And on top of that, there's something weird going on in the town that this restaurant is in. I don't want to say much else about the film. It's definitely a little weirdly paced and kind of wonky. Supposedly, though, this film is a classic Canadian horror film. Like, this is a super iconic movie in Canada, I guess. Which I would never have guessed because it's kind of weird. But then again, the Canadians really loved Phantom of the Paradise for some reason, so I guess I can't judge too much. Despite the funky pacing and kind of plot, it veers into a subgenre of horror that I'm not going to say, because if I say it, it'll be a spoiler, but it veers into a subgenre of horror that I really, really love and that I think is super underdone and underappreciated. For the final act, which really made this film win me over majorly. Cannibal Girls is currently on Tubi if you want to check it out. It's a 3.5 out of 5 for this one. Up next is Otaku Vampires from 2016. This is a horror comedy that's seemingly also a student project, I think. It stars a bunch of college age people, and I'm gonna assume the director was also college age, considering the subject matter of the film. It's essentially a movie about a anime club that gets infiltrated by vampires, and it's up to this guy who isn't really into anime too much to save his girlfriend and as many weeaboos as possible from this threat of vampirism. This movie is, to quote my review of it on Letterboxd, it's like a fucking bump of coke. It's a shock to the senses. It is like just such a gloriously like wild movie. Especially if you, like me, grew up on the internet in like nerdy communities in the if you were involved in that shit in like the 2010s, you will understand all the references, and you will understand you will see a lot of maybe yourself, but maybe your friends and people you knew in this film. And it's kind of like a walk down memory lane, except the entire time you're cringing and laughing at it. There's a character in the film who's a porn addict who just is always on his laptop looking at hentai. There's a glomping that occurs in the first scene. I can't believe I just said that fucking sentence, but it indeed does happen. This is just like, I don't know if this was made ironically or not. It was made in 2016, and I don't know if at that point in time the internet had grown and communities like this had grown to the point of understanding irony truly. So it's hard to define whether or not this is like being ironic and making fun of anime fans, or if this was made earnestly by anime fans or not. That being said, though, this movie is like a 3 out of 5. It's not great, but like it's a fucking riot. The entire runtime, it is just a great time from start to finish. I had a lot of fun with it, and I hope that the director, who as of now has only done this film, does something else, and hopefully it's as gloriously awful as this one is. This is on Tubi if you want to check it out. It's there right now for free with ads if you want to see it. Okay, up next is the debut film from Rocco Zevenbergen. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. I Need You Dead from 2020. This is a movie I heard about because Horrible Reviews interviewed the director and did a review of it. And the review, don't get me wrong, it didn't like what I saw of the film didn't really wow me enough to like want to like seek it out immediately. I put it on my watch list because I was curious about it, and it eventually hit Tubi, which it's on there right now. You can go watch it, and I want to just say right now, highly recommend you do. It's one of the greatest independent horror films I've seen in quite a while. You can tell that Rocco is a really interesting creative guy, and I'm looking forward to his next film that he's working on, Flapjacks, which will be hopefully as good as I Need You Dead is. I Need You Dead, though, is a film about a young punk rocker named Dude who manifests his self-deprecating thoughts in the form of a little Frank Henenlotter basket case brain damage flesh ball monster that is trying to convince him to kill himself. And he has to discover how to get rid of it before, that happens. I don't want to say much else about this film other than, like, I regret not seeing it immediately after hearing about it. Lloyd Kaufman talked about the film and saw the film, and he's got a cameo in the film, which is really great. It really is. His cameo is hilarious. You can tell that Rocco loves trauma and loves independent filmmaking, and you can tell this guy has a lot of creative energy, and I'm definitely gonna say right now, this is probably one of my favorite horror movies that came out in 2020. If I would have seen it in 2020, this would have most definitely been in my top 10 for that year, maybe even the top 5 for that year. I can't really remember what was in my top 5 for 2020, but this is definitely one that would have been there. I highly recommend you check this out. It's a great film if you love independent filmmaking. This is it. This is one of the greats in my opinion. Currently, this is kind of a masterpiece, and that's what Wood Kaufman said about it. But yeah, I Need You Dead. I'm gonna pick up the Blu-ray of this one eventually. Maybe even sooner than eventually. But that's, up in the air as of now. Alright, time for Evil Dead Rise. We all saw this coming. Let's be honest. Do I even need to say anything about what Evil Dead Rise is about? It's the newest Evil Dead film. Essentially, this family in a crumbling apartment building find the Necronomicon and unleashes evil on the residents in this mostly abandoned apartment building. This movie is violent, it's wild, it's kind of disturbing. It plays with some stuff and some concepts that like really disturb and get under my skin, so it like really got to me. I saw this in the theater, obviously, because it's still in theaters as of at least now when I'm recording this. It's the 5th of May. Yeah, I really like this one. I don't have much to say about it because, like, everything I'm saying is everything I'd want to say about it, which is just that, like, it's a good time, it's violent. If you like the Evil Dead movies, you should see this. If you like the remake, you should see this. Everything that I would want to say about this film, everybody else is already saying about it. So, that's all I'm going to say about it. It's a fun, violent time, great time at the cinema. Don't take your kids to see it, though. When I fucking saw it, there were, like, people bringing in kids that were, like, 5, 6 years old. And, like, don't get me wrong, my parents took me to see R-rated movies when I was a kid. You want to be the cool parent. But, like, with this one, with some of the concepts it plays with, I would not recommend taking a very young kid to see this. There was somebody literally carrying in their child, like, in their arms when they went to see this, when I saw this in the theater. That kid didn't cry, though, so that kid's tough, I'll give them that. But yeah, Evil Dead Rise, it's probably the weakest Evil Dead movie in my opinion, like, weaker than the remake, but I kind of really like the remake, so yeah. That being said, though, this is still like a 3.5 out of 5. This is still a great one. Still a really good time. Check it out. Okay, on to the big one. The new Ari Aster flick, Beau is Afraid. I've been very excited for this film because the trailers really didn't give you much to go on as to what the film was about. And most of the plot descriptions that I was reading up until after its release were just very vague and just basically reciprocating what the tagline of the film was, which is, "From his darkest fears comes the most wondrous adventure," something along those lines. Beau is Afraid, though, and I'm going to give just a little explanation as to what it is about. It is about a guy in his 40s, played by Joaquin Phoenix. He has a very weird relationship with his mother, and it's essentially about him trying to get home to his mother. That's what it's about. And through that, you are taken on this 3-hour-long journey through all these themes and all this different stuff, all this crazy shit happens to him. It's a very absurd, very weird, dark comedy. There's some hints of horror in there, which I really liked. But this is definitely, I wouldn't call it a horror film. But it definitely has elements of horror. I really like this one, though. I know there are some people who are like, wow, this is Ari Aster's most pretentious movie. But, like, I wouldn't agree with that. I think that there's definitely a lot going on in this film, and I think Ari Aster is one of the most interesting voices in filmmaking right now, up there with, Yorgos Lanthimos, in my opinion, and who's another director I'm enjoying right now? Oh, of course. How could I forget Robert Eggers, who is probably my favorite current working director. Um, but yeah, this is a pretty good movie. I would definitely recommend giving it a watch if art house films are your thing. You know, if you're into movies that are kind of weird, dark comedies. Um, I think that this is definitely a good one to watch. I had a great time watching it in the theater. It was hilarious. I laughed a lot. And it was also kind of like a 3 hour long panic attack. What I have left to say about the film is I'm going to quote a review I saw on Letterboxd, which is I don't think anybody else was supposed to see this movie except for Ari Aster himself. And I think that's why it's such a good time. But yeah, Beau is Afraid. 4 out of 5. Really like this one. Gonna revisit it someday. Don't know if I'll revisit it as soon as it hits Blu-ray or whatever, but or streaming. But maybe I will. But I still highly recommend you give it a watch. Okay, we're on to the last movie. Finally, I can, get on to editing, which is my least favorite part of making videos. The final film I want to talk about is The Mask from 1961. This is another Canadian horror flick, essentially about a young archaeologist who believes he is cursed by a mask that causes you to have weird nightmares, and possibly even murder people. Before he commits suicide, though, he mails the mask to his psychiatrist, who then plunges into this mystery of what this mask is and what it can do and what it can do to people. This is a movie I've known about for quite a while, and I wish I could have found the 3D version of it online, because it's a film that's in black and white, and then when people put on the mask, the film goes to color, and it's like weird nightmare scenes. They reminded me quite a lot of the Hell segment from the second Coffin Joe film, which is This Night I'll Possess Your Corpse, which is a really great movie. But unlike the Hell segment in the Coffin Joe film, where like it's obvious it's supposed to be hell, you don't really know what this weird mask nightmare world is supposed to be. So it's it's just a weird mix of just ankle deep fog, ancient rituals, fireballs, snakes, skulls, eyeballs, and naturally the mask itself. This would make for some great background noise to accompany some like horror-infused psych rock or doom metal even, I think. It's just a really, like, those segments when people put on the mask are like really, really good. Like, holy shit, it's great, grade A, psychotronic, hallucinogenic, just hellscape. It's so good. The rest of the film is, don't get me wrong, it's not boring. It's a genuinely interesting little mystery as to what's going on with this mask and what it can, and the powers that it has and everything. But they really, it just really brings it up a whole nother level into it being just a traditional black and white kind of psychological thriller mystery film into being a full-on psychotronic horror film. This movie is amazing. I will be buying it on Blu-ray or DVD. I don't know. The thing is, I don't know if the Blu-ray is like in anaglyphic 3D or if it's a 3D Blu-ray or not, because I do not have a 3D Blu-ray player, and I don't even think they make those anymore. Nor do I want to get a 3D Blu-ray player ever. I want to get the version that's anaglyphic 3D so I can just wear the fucking dumb glasses. I'm fine with wearing the dumb glasses. Which I know the DVD is that way, but the DVD is like $5 more expensive than the fucking Blu-ray for some reason. I don't know, man. It's so confusing. I wish I could like just Google, hey, is anaglyphic, like, is that an option on the Blu-ray? Because like the Blu-ray of, I'm gonna go on a tangent here. The Blu-ray of Creature from the Black Lagoon that I have says right on the back, 3D version included, but they didn't include the anaglyphic 3D version. They just included the fucking 3D Blu-ray version, which means I can't watch Creature from the Black Lagoon in 3D. That's bullshit. I hate that. Fucking give me the option, goddammit. I want to wear the dumb glasses. Either way, this one's really good. This is like a 3.5, maybe even a 4 out of 5. I gotta see how I feel on a rewatch. But I'm really glad that I finally saw this one. And I highly recommend you check it out. I found it online. It's on YouTube. There's a horror host on YouTube who did an episode on it, which it's basically just the whole movie with a couple horror host segments that I won't even lie, I completely skipped over. Anyway, guys, that's it for this one. This is the final film in this video, and yeah, now it's time to edit this bitch, and I'm not looking forward to that. Anyway, guys, this is Biscuit Boo Horror Reviews signing off. Peace.